And actually, one of the best winemakers that we have in Bordeaux now is a guy at Mouton Rothschild who's called Jean-Emmanuel Danjois. And he has been back in Bordeaux, I guess now for about 20, maybe 15 years, but he was at Opus One for a long time. And really, I think the experience that he had in California has so influenced and shaped the way that he makes wine, and the openness with which he approaches how to create great wine, I think has been brilliant. And that's a huge influence, I think, of California.
So would you say one of the major influences that California has on Bordeaux is this openness, is it a willingness to share information? Is that what you're
I
speaking of?
think so. So I asked Florence Catillard. So Florence bought Flora Springs last year or 2 years ago. Has been I think it's been tough for them to visit because of everything that's happened over the last couple of years, obviously. But they bought Flora Springs, renamed it as, I think, Catillard Family Winery. And I asked her, what's the appeal, so I could share it with you tonight. And it was super, super interesting. So she said that they love the entrepreneurial spirit. They love the idea and they themselves are sometimes seen as being unusual in Bordeaux, maybe a little bit odd when they first moved here, because they weren't from the wine world and they were Olympic skiers. They made their money in sports shops, and then they bought in Bordeaux. And I think they really loved the fact that when you go to California, that is exactly the way that so many people who own properties in California, that's the same story, is, fulfilling a dream and having been successful in something else and coming in. So I think they love that. She said that they like that that the two regions share history and share the grape variety. So all the stuff that we're talking about. So you could come to California as a Bordelaise winemaker and not feel like you're starting again from scratch, because the grapes that you're working with and a lot of the terroir is similar, if not the climate. They said that it's similar prices. What you're spending for the best terroir in the two regions is not dissimilar. And then you get to this idea of what we're saying, the winemaking techniques that you can do in the States that you're not allowed to do so much in Bordeaux. Like any Appellation Contrôlée region in France, is very tightly controlled. So how much can you make? What yield can you make per acre? Are you allowed to use any irrigation? The answer is almost never, unless it's very hot or they're very young vines. What can all of these, what grape varieties can you plant? All of these things are so tightly controlled in France and not in California. So they loved that as well. I think it's just a very fruitful exchange of two regions who have a similar approach and mindset to making wine. And I think they also appreciate actually the way that Napa wine is sold and positioned and presents its excellence to the world.
Yeah. Right. And Napa's great. Obviously, I live here. We also have Sonoma. We have, as far as Cabernet, Paso Robles, other areas that are really becoming renowned for producing those great wines, and the hospitality, the tourism that goes with it to promote those areas. One of the things that strikes me that's on everyone's mind these days is climate change. And climate change has affected both vignerons in Bordeaux as well as people here in California. What has climate change meant for people in Bordeaux? How are they dealing with it? And have they learned anything from California in that regard?
So this is also, I think, where maybe 40, 50 years ago, maybe when at the Opus One's start, there was a lot of idea of you would be marrying the get up and go of Napa and the fact that it was an up and coming region with the expertise of Bordeaux. But actually, I think when we're talking about climate change, so much of that is swapping around, and there's so much that not just in Bordeaux, but in many regions across France are realizing that they can learn. There's an excellent professor here at one of the wine institutes here who is Californian. And he said that it's very interesting seeing that a lot of the issues that he studied when he was younger and working out of California, and research he was doing in California, is now being put to good use in Bordeaux. So things like what rootstocks can you be using, and how should you be pruning, and how should you be trellising and training the vines, all of these things to help protect against a changing climate. Bordeaux has the drawback of only having 6 allowable red grape varieties, 6 allowable white grape varieties at the moment in Bordeaux. And a lot of the research is going into how do you specifically adapt viticulture and vinification for those varieties. but there are also tests ongoing about introducing new varieties. So some varieties that might be planted in Portugal even, or in hotter, drier places. It's a big area.